Hi, hello, and welcome to this short insight training recorded session for CPD. My name's Nikki Clough. I'm one of the directors of Insight Training. And just a change from the normal technical skills blog that we often bring to you in our newsletter, we thought we'd actually, we've done this once or twice before, do something on kind of the interpersonal skills. We're doing a lot of skills training at the moment. We're getting a lot of requests from clients and firms around the business skills, soft skills issues. And in particular, over the last few weeks, we've been sort of talking about how people best combine their technical interpersonal skills to kind of, I suppose, free up more time, but also a real focus on retention and recruitment at the moment, and actually sort of not only getting the best staff, but being able to keep staff. So quite a lot of focus in firms around development at the moment. So I'm going to share my screen, and what we thought we would bring you is a session on coaching, coaching moments. In fact, I've called this. So explore just a few things, short session, but just talking a little bit around what coaching is, what it's not, and a few practical tips. So here's the focus. So thinking about people's changing roles as people progress through a firm, and where their demands, the demands on their time, and indeed their kind of focus and energy, how that changes. Focusing in then on coaching, what it is and what it's not. So it's not delegation, for example, and offering you, there are many coaching models, but just going through a particular coaching model and a few practical tips that you might find useful. So just a little bit of context, I suppose, first of all. One of the most recent courses we were running was an audit-based course. In fact, what makes a good audit RI, responsible individual, and lots of technical stuff coming out, but also lots of interpersonal stuff. And in fact, one of the things that came out, and you may know this if your firm is one that does audit, International Education Standard 8, IES 8, which breaks down the competencies that an audit RI is expected to have, and into the technical competence areas, professional skills, and then professional values, ethics, and attitudes. And certainly homing in on those professional skills, interpersonal skills a little more, then we see we're talking about things like effective communication, consultation, acting as a role model and as a mentor or coach to the team, and providing leadership. Very much a focus there on interpersonal skills. But it's not just in an audit firm. All firms we know are focusing on recruitment and retention at the moment. And I just pulled out a couple of quotes, actually, both from one's from last week's course, but one's from another client. And just saying, oh, this is what's on our mind at the moment. We want our firm to be somewhere where people want to or can foresee themselves staying to develop their career. Yeah, so we're really lucky, aren't we, in our profession, that we have so many opportunities available to us, and it makes our profession very attractive to people wanting, good people wanting to come into it. But actually, yeah, if you want to develop your career, can you stay in the firm that you trained? And indeed, last week, chatting to one of the audit RIs, and we were talking about coaching and development of staff, and he was saying, yeah, it's so important, because yes, we can recruit, absolutely we can, but homegrown is better. So I love that quote. So I hope those people won't mind me using their words to just illustrate why we think coaching development is so important and so critical for firms right now. So I mentioned your changing role. And I suppose I think this is just a sort of something interesting to look at for a minute, just thinking about your role. And again, you may be involved in audit, you may be involved in tax or consulting or whatever it might be, any professional really. There's kind of three parts to it, isn't there, where you spend your time and, as I say, your focus and energy. So clearly a chunk of it is technical, the technical competence that you have to build. Another chunk is going to be your professional values and particularly, I guess, your professional judgment, really, really key. And then the other chunk is going to be your management skills, not only managing yourself, but also other people. And as you move through your career, then the pieces of pie need to shift. And actually, early on, you're going to be focusing on that technical competence, becoming technically competent. But as you move up through, you become, I was thinking an audit firm, I guess, again, but senior and manager and partner, but again, across a wide range of roles, then the professional judgment is going to have to be a bigger slice of the pie. And in order to get that a bigger slice of the pie, you're going to have to get the technical stuff done by other people. And it's going to be more important as you move up to manage other people, not just yourself. So that slice of the pie needs to get bigger. And it's that slice of the pie, I guess, that we're going to be focusing on here today, those management skills. And often, we do get promoted in our profession through our technical competence. And it's really, really important. But actually, yeah, we've got to then spend time deliberately building our management skill setup and focusing on that. And then, as I say, there's two parts to it. There's the managing you, and there's the managing others. And yeah, focusing, as I say, on coaching and a little bit, why is it different from delegation? So I've put delegation there under the managing you, because really that's about, as you move up, how you've got to delegate tasks to other people. And often, to be honest, when we speak to people about why they find delegation difficult, it's much more about them than the other person. So it's much more about maybe not wanting to let go control, or sometimes it's a fear of not wanting to kind of effectively dump on other people. So actually, it's just easier if I do it myself. So actually, you really need to build up the techniques and force yourself to delegate tasks to other people. And when we're doing that, and when we're thinking about managing others, that's where the coaching can start to come in. The coaching really is less about the task, but more about the other person. And yeah, I'm fortunate enough to spend some time with clients acting as a coach, as an executive coach. And we'll normally spend, a session of an hour perhaps, or even longer in some circumstances. And that's not necessarily something that you're going to have time for, a lot. But you can take coaching moments, I think, during your working day, taking opportunities to have little moments of coaching to develop other people. So thinking first of all then about what I mean here. First of all, let's take delegation. So what is good delegation? Well, what we mean is that it's a way, definition here, of achieving results by motivating others to carry out specific tasks for which you are ultimately responsible. So it's not an abdication of responsibility at all. No, it's actually trying to manage somebody else to complete the task for you. And to be effective at delegating, you need to be clear on expectations and objectives. You need to try to leave the specific way of doing the task to the other person, let them a little bit figure out for themselves, no micromanaging. You need to be involved, though, setting deadlines, progress checks, remaining available so that somebody can come back and check in with you if they're not sure. And making sure that you follow up and give feedback. Really, really important. And this all takes time, but has to be done in order for you to be able to carve out the time in your day to focus on the things that you need to do. And it's when you're delegating often that you can find moments to really engage in some coaching and development. So what's the coaching part? So lots of definitions out there. This is one of my favorites. What coaching's all about, other than just managing, delegating, is unlocking a person's potential to maximize their own performance. It's about helping them to learn rather than actually just teaching them. So it's getting them to come up with the answers themselves. We can think of those light bulb moments perhaps we've had when we've understood something really well for the first time, or we see a way through, we've learned something really well, and so often it's when we found out that answer for ourselves. So this particular definition here is from a very famous book called Coaching for Performance, John Whitmore, but there's a myriad of coaching books out there. And what we're thinking about with true coaching is and about the input continuum here, in terms of how involved you get, how closely you're telling or managing the other person. So if we're managing delegations, yeah, you're pretty involved, and we've said that with those 5 steps to good delegation. Yes, being clear on expectations, staying involved, monitoring, setting deadlines, giving feedback. If you perhaps, and we talked about this for ISH, there was also, okay, not so closely managing, perhaps you're acting as a mentor for the audit team, perhaps an audit RI might be doing that. Then that's a little bit less hands-on, a little bit less tell, a little bit more show, perhaps. But when we've been a coach, the input from you is really very low, and your job is to skillfully encourage that other person to find the answers for themselves. So how do you do that? How do you do that in these little coaching moments perhaps you might seek to find during the day? Well, it's all about communication skills. At the end of the day, it's about questioning and it's about listening. So really good open questions and really, really good active listening. And by active listening, very much don't mean taking turns to speak, which is how many people interpret listening. But it's actually really giving a person space, really without judgment, tuning into what they're saying and how they're saying it, and asking follow-up questions, and perhaps playing back what you've understood from what they've told you without judgment, letting them know actively that you're listening to them, not just waiting for your turn to tell them what you think. So that's the absolute key, and certainly for a good coach, it's a bit of an 80-20, 80% listening, 20% talking is not a bad rule. And how do you bring this together? There's again a huge number of different techniques and coaching models out there, but I'm just going to offer you a very simple one here, which you might have heard of, the GROW model. And this is actually something that's certainly used in the John Whitmore book. And the GROW model stands for goal, reality, options, and will, or way forward sometimes. And it's just not a bad little model to have in your mind if you're trying to take these moments to do some coaching with people. So establishing what is they want to do differently, what the current reality is, what their current situation is, what the options are to change, to do something differently, and then how they'll take that forward, the way forward, and the will sometimes stands for the motivation to take that forward. But just let's look at a very quick little example. So this was something actually that came up recently, an example somebody brought on a course. They were a partner, and the manager was telling them that they found a particular client really awkward to deal with, and they wanted your advice. So really easy here to go, oh yes, let me tell you what I would do in your situation, and that might be really helpful. But actually it's an opportunity to have a coaching moment, to actually try to get the manager to take their own responsibility and think through how they would approach the situation. So rein yourself in. It's really easy to just tell, but let's just kind of run through how it might go. So these are sort of some standard questions, but how this might be applied to our scenario. So let's think about the goal. So what is the current situation? So asking the manager, okay, what is it you're trying to achieve here? What, you're finding this client awkward to deal with. Well, what do you need the situation to be? So is it that you are having to convey a difficult message to them? Is it that you're having a fee negotiation? Are you trying to set up some dates and they have to get some schedules or something ready for you? What's going on with this client? What is going on with this client that you want to improve in terms of the awkwardness of the relationship? So again, don't assume, get them to tell you what it is they're trying to achieve and what they want, how they want it to change, why they think it's a problem. What then is the current reality? So if the situation with the relationship with the client is not where they want it to be, why is that? What's going wrong? Get them to actually play it back to you if possible. Again, it's really can be hard, especially if you know the client. And certainly one of the partners who brought this issue was saying, oh, this client's a bit of a bully, actually, throws their weight around. And the particular partner's concern was of the view that the manager and the firm indeed needed to stand up to the client and didn't want to be messed around. You need to rein that back in. You need to get the manager to say, okay, what is the current situation from your perspective? You're not them. You haven't had the experience that they've had with the client. You've had your experience with the client. So again, listen, tune in without judgment. Get them to tell you how it is, what it is they've already tried, what they haven't tried. And then you move on to what the options are to do something different. What have they tried already? What else can they think of? And this is real sitting on your hands stuff, because it's very tempting at this stage to say, well, this is what I would do. Yeah, and that can be part of it. Them asking you can be an option. Who could you go to who might give you some help here? But as far as possible, try to get that question to come from them before you mention, because otherwise you lose out on that potential light bulb moment. So what would make the most difference? And then the critical, then the will, the way forward, the what now. What happens next? What are you going to do? When are you going to do this? Yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10, this is a great question, this bit. How committed are you to taking that action? And sometimes here, when you kind of think you've come up with a course of action, but the person is, yes, actually, I know I should speak to the client face to face, or should arrange a meeting or give them a call, but I think I'm going to just email. This is where that comes out. Yeah, because the commitment isn't really there. So something really interesting, and it may be sometimes, and all the steps along the way, you sometimes have to go back. You don't have to completely stick to the goal, reality, options, will. You get to the will and think, oh no, this person isn't quite there. It might be you have to go back and explore some options. Now, of course, what this means is, for you, it does involve you putting in some time and effort. And I'm not saying that this comes easy, but I do completely know that it makes a huge difference to people. And obviously the time that you invest now will be time that gets repaid. as people's skills develop, and so it's all a bit pay forward, I guess you could say. So anyway, I hope you find that useful. Coaching is a very big topic, and certainly it's certainly something that's skill, but it's certainly something that's a skill that's very well worth developing, and certainly something that we think makes a huge difference to development of people in your organisation. So hope that's been useful to you. Thank you very much indeed for listening to this. Thank you.